Helping parents heal. What is your understanding of death and what happens when you die? How can parents who lose a child ever overcome the sadness of that and transform their lives so that they feel more empowered in their life? Today we're going to talk about that. Oops, there we go. Today we're going to talk about that with the beautiful Elizabeth Boisson, who is the founder of Helping Parents Heal, and listen to her amazing story and hear exactly what's going on in the States and across the world with this amazing group. Stay tuned, coming up.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive, Expanding and Awakening Consciousness with Karen Swain. And thank you for everyone that's been tuning in with your messages and tuning into the live chat. And I just want to remind you that I've been doing these shows for about 16 years now, and I never put ads on the shows. Have you noticed that we never run any ads on any of the streaming platforms? And so it's be really helpful if you donate to the shows to keep us going. There's always a link underneath every show that's where you can donate. Today, I've got a beautiful woman on the show with me today who's doing amazing things across the world. Elizabeth Boisson, welcome to the show, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm so grateful to be here, and this is going to be so wonderful to speak to you.
I forgot to tell people that we are on the United Public Radio Network and, of course, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio in 120 countries and live streaming on 8 platforms. So who introduced me to you? I think it was Craig and I've gone blank. Craig and what's Craig's wife's name? They were talking about you because you co-authored a book with them.
Oh, so you were talking to Craig. Yes. Okay. So it's Craig McMahon. Is that correct?
McMahon. Craig and Julie McMahon. There you go. Went blank. Yeah.
And so they actually, he did a documentary about helping parents heal. And it was the first in the series of Life to Afterlife. And ours was called Life to Afterlife, Mom, Can You Hear Me? And then he went on to do a lot of other of these same Life to Afterlife series. And it was really an exciting thing to be the first one. And then we did a book right after with all of the people who are in the documentary. And this poster that you see that's on the book was created by Craig. So we feel very grateful to him. He's a shining light sibling. His siblings passed when he was very young.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Elizabeth and what she's up to. Elizabeth Boisson is the president and co-founder of Helping Parents Heal. She has 4 beautiful children, 2 of whom are in spirit. Chelsea, who passed in Montpellier, France, when she was 2 days old, and Morgan, who transitioned at the base camp of Mount Everest in Tibet while on a university exchange program when he was almost 21 years old. She also has 2 beautiful daughters, Alix and Christine. And in October 20th, 2009, while Morgan was undergoing CPR on Mount Everest, Elizabeth asked his roommate to put his phone up to Morgan's ear, and while speaking with her son, Elizabeth felt him hug her from the inside, creating what is known as a shared death experience. It was at that moment that, it's going to make me cry, that Elizabeth realized love lives forever. A week later, she started a Facebook support group to help parents or anyone who experiences death of a loved one understand this too, And in March 2012, with Mark Ireland, Elizabeth created the nonprofit group Helping Parents Heal, which currently has around 200 affiliate groups, 36 caring listeners who speak 11 different languages, and almost 25,000 members across the world. Elizabeth started Helping Parents Heal to meet other parents who have gone through the passing of a child and to let them know that it is possible to heal from the passing of a child, and that our kids want us to be happy. They are our biggest cheerleaders, holding our hands and leading us forward. And the website is helpingparentsheal.org. Wow, you've had quite a life, Elizabeth. Amazing, amazing experience. Do you want to start with maybe the first baby? Was it?
Sure, I would love to. I like to be able to kind of explain what happened for me
Absolutely.
to arrive at the point that I created this organization, because it would have been the farthest thing from my thought to create an organization like this before Chelsea passed. But Chelsea passed in France when she was only 2 days old. And I had been at in a hospital for 2 months at the time, on an IV, because I had contractions and I had placenta previa. And so by the time that Chelsea was born, I lost my water about 5 days before she was born. I knew that she wasn't moving as much, but my gynecologist or my obstetrician was not available. Um, so her lungs were crushed when she was born, and she immediately went into an incubator and lasted for 2 days. That kind of set me on a journey to discover more about what happens when our children pass. But the thing that really saved me at the time was being able to get home to Morgan, because Morgan had been staying at my mother-in-law's in France for 2 months, and it was extremely hard for me to be in the hospital and not be around Morgan. So having him with me was so wonderful, and I was able to move forward and heal at that point. Having Morgan transition when he was 20 years old at the base camp of Mount Everest was very different. And if you'd like, I can tell a little bit about what happened then.
Absolutely, please do.
Okay. Um, Morgan was on an exchange program in Nanjing, China, and he had already studied in Nanjing 2 years prior. So he was one of the kids that spoke the best Chinese. He was going back for his senior year. He didn't need the credits, but he loved it over there, and he wanted to he wanted to be able to speak better Chinese. And so for fall break, he said that he'd love to go to Hong Kong because he had a lot of friends there. And we were nervous that he might not be able to get back into China with his visa, with his student visa. So we said, why don't you stay in China? Is there anything else going on? And he said, all of the students are going to Tibet. Two professors are going, the other students are going as well. And we said, oh, that sounds fantastic. Why don't you go to Tibet? They had been learning all about the economy, the political situation, all different things about Tibet. So he was very excited about that as well. They flew into Tibet at 11,000 feet. There were 13 kids. And the next day, they started up the mountain to go to the base camp of Mount Everest. And they were at 11,000 feet going up to 19,000 feet. And normally you shouldn't change more than about 2,000 feet a day. So everyone on the bus had altitude sickness. They were all sick. They were all throwing up. So they'd have to stop the bus and get these kids off, and they would be throwing up. Or they were actually urinating on themselves in the bus, because this is another sign of altitude sickness. And they got up to the base camp. And at that time, Morgan decided to go to bed because he had a splitting migraine headache, which is also a sign of altitude sickness. He went to bed. He kept getting up during the night and wandering around the yurt and calling the kids by the wrong names, which is also a sign of altitude sickness, this disorientation. And finally, at 9 o'clock in the morning, when they were supposed to go back down the mountain, they tried to wake him up, and he was foaming at the mouth, and they couldn't wake him up. So one of the kids on the program, whose mother is a medical doctor in Washington State, he called his mother, and his mother said, "Get Morgan down the mountain as quickly as possible." And so they loaded him onto the bus. My son was 6'7", 280 pounds. So it was no easy task.
Wow.
These kids got him onto the bus, and he was a cheerleader at U of A. He was also a football player in high school. He's a big, big guy. And then as they were moving down the mountain, I got a call from the head of the program, and he said that Morgan was being evacuated down the mountain because of altitude sickness. Would I like to speak to his roommate? And I said, yes, please give me his roommate's number. So he gave me Colin's number. And when I called Colin, by that time, he had completely stopped breathing, and they took him off the bus, and they were attempting CPR on him on the ground. But none of these kids really knew how to do CPR. And Colin told me, "Miss Boisson, it doesn't look good. He's stopped breathing. We're doing CPR on him, but I don't think that he's going to make it." So at that moment, I asked Colin to put the phone up to Morgan's ear. And I told Morgan that we loved him, that we were proud of him, and not to be afraid. And right at that moment, I got the biggest hug from Morgan. He was in Tibet, obviously, on this mountain. I was here in Cave Creek, and I was sitting next to my husband in the office, which is in a different part of our house. And my husband, I sounded so normal that he said, "Let me speak to him." And I said, "No, honey, I'm sorry. I don't think that he can speak back to you." But the incredible thing about this experience was that it was so all-encompassing. I felt so much love from Morgan, for Morgan, but also so much love that was just coming from everywhere. And I knew that he was in a wonderful place. And this experience proved to me that love lives forever. I knew that there was more than just what had happened to Morgan.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's such a beautiful experience. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, amazing. Um, yeah, so after that, you set out to like share that with others by starting a support group. Like as soon as you had that experience, you're like, people need to know this. Did it help alleviate the grief, or did grief still visit you?
Well, for me, I must say that every time that I started to get sad, I would feel that same hug from Morgan from the inside. So I think that Morgan felt like I had a job to do and that I needed to start right away. So my job was to find other parents who were experiencing this and to reassure them that their kids are not gone. But one of the things that was kind of difficult at the time, this was in 2009, was that here in the States, the support groups that were available that I went to meet other parents didn't allow us to talk about the signs and the synchronicities and the validations that our kids were sending us from the other side. So
Wow.
I would go to these support meetings, and the only thing that people were really allowed to talk about were how their child transitioned, which is such a sad thing to talk about. And our kids don't want to hear about it over and over and over again. So I would say, oh my goodness, I had this incredible experience today, and start talking about something about Morgan, and the moderator would say, we don't talk about that in these meetings. And so I ended up going into the parking lot to my car, and all the parents would gravitate to me and say, I'm having the same thing happen to me. Oh my gosh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it made me feel so good because I realized that I wasn't the only person that was having this happen. But that pushed me to create a Facebook group so that I was able to connect with people who were having these same experiences. And then we started having in-person meetings about a month later. And we had these in-person meetings with the co-founder, Mark Ireland, who had written a book called Soul Shift: Finding Where the Dead Go. And the book was about his son. And it was kind of a huge coincidence, but there are no coincidences. His son also passed on a mountain range, and he passed of an asthma attack here in Scottsdale on the McDowell mountain range. But Mark wrote a book. Mark's father is a very famous psychic named Richard Ireland. And before Brandon passed, before his son passed, Mark was never really interested in any of what his father did. He only knew that
Right.
his father traveled all over the world. He was always gone,
Wow.
and it was difficult for him. But then when Brandon passed, he realized that he really wanted to develop these skills and learn where Brandon was.
Wow, that's amazing. This is what I love about your organization. Because, yeah, I was helping someone put on a afterlife event this year, and I reached out to a few organizations like Death Cafe and Death Doulas, and they said the same thing. Oh, we don't talk about what happens after you die or when you die or signs or anything. We just talk about just the death and overcoming death and grief. And I suppose a lot of people do that. Let's just talk about the 4 stages of grief and getting through it that way, which is valuable. I'm not saying there's no value in that, but I think that the most transformative experience is when you understand there is no death. There is no death, and that you can still maintain a relationship with another dimension, your loved ones, your kids or loved ones in another dimension on the other side, as we call it. And your organization so goes there, like you've got amazing speakers in your organization that speak about this and more. So with is
I
it Mike? Sorry,
Oh,
go
go
on.
I was
Mark,
just
with
gonna say the Stages of Death by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross are actually they're the stages of dying. They're not the stages of grief. And I have spoken with her son about this, and I've reread her books. Has nothing to do with the grief itself. It has to do with the stages of dying. So the acceptance, the depression, all of these other things. But for us, our organization is different because we truly believe that it's possible to heal from the passing of a child. And we not only believe it, but we also think that our children really want us to heal and that they're helping us every step of the way. So the connection that we have with them in the afterlife is what is helping us to move forward. But they are also uh, at the same time learning how to communicate with us. And it's something that makes them very happy to be able to see that we are getting the messages and understanding what they're telling us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's incredible. I love your organization, and you've had many conferences with incredible speakers, and yeah, you're doing incredible things. With Mark and his father, Mark Ireland,
Mhm.
so what happened when his son passed? What was Brandon? Was his son's name, was it?
His
And
son's name is Brandon, yes.
so you said that he never really thought about what his father did. He just, knew that he traveled a lot and stuff like that. What was his story? Like, how did that transform him? What did he say to his father? I suppose I should ask him those questions, really, but I'm sure you know.
Well, of course, he wanted to be able to connect with Brandon as quickly as possible. And he knew quite a few really good mediums who his father had worked with. And so he started uh, going to see if they were getting any information from Brandon. And in fact, one of the really cool things that he did very early on, and this was back in 2007, I believe, is that he had all of the friends who were really close to Brandon over to his house. And he had one of our certified mediums from Helping Parents Heal, who wasn't working for Helping Parents Heal at the time yet, um, who did readings for all of the kids, because all of these kids were so deeply in grief,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
because of the passing of their very dear friend. And it was kind of a revolutionary thing to have all these kids over and to have each of them get a reading from, it was from James
absolutely.
at the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is such a cool thing. What about you with Chelsea and Morgan? How long did it take you to reach out to them yourself and communicate, or through a medium? Were
Well,
you into that at the time, or did you have to sort of, like warm to that experience?
Well, I had lived in India for quite some time, so I'd been
Okay.
practicing yoga for most of my life, and I
Okay.
think that that kind of got me ready. But I also, with Chelsea, I wasn't concentrating on the connection with her at the time because I was so excited to be back with Morgan, and then I had 2 other beautiful daughters. Um, on the other hand, when Morgan transitioned, I have been told by mediums that the first person to meet him on the other side was Chelsea. And she
Ah,
grabbed his hand and led him to me. And that's the reason that I got that incredible hug. So I like to tell parents that I was very lucky because I got that hug, but I think it's because of the fact that Chelsea was already over there and she'd been planning this for quite some time that I was going to be able to get that hug from Morgan. So um, I also think that the signs that Morgan sent me from the very beginning were just earth shattering. I mean, I have never experienced the different things that Morgan was sending right from the very beginning in terms of electricity, in terms of moving traps in our ceiling. He was moving our golf carts when he didn't have the key. It was just fascinating. But if it's okay with you, I would like to just tell you some of the most incredible experiences that I have had with Morgan's power and strength from the other side. And this is coming from friends of his as well as his siblings. So the first really incredible validation that we got was from Dan McKee, who was the mascot. He was Wilbur the Wildcat, while Morgan was one of the cheerleaders on the U of A um, cheerleading team. And so, right after Morgan transitioned, Dan came up to my daughters and said, "This is going to be really hard for you because um, I just had a brother pass, and I don't think you're ever going to get over this." And it was at a bonfire that was for Morgan. And I was kind of concerned about this because I knew that they were going to be able to get over this, but I was worried about Dan. And then Dan graduated that same year and started as a firefighter in Peoria, a town that's very close to here. And on the first job, he was in the garage, and he and another firefighter were the other firefighter was at the wheel of the car. They had put it into neutral. Dan was going to push the car out of the garage, and all of the sudden, as he started to push, he was lifted backward off of his feet, almost into the air, and then all the way back to the back of the room. And at that moment, an air conditioning unit fell right where he would have been standing.
Oh, wow.
Dan knew that it was Morgan's arms that were around him, pulling him backward.
Wow.
So Dan named his first son after Morgan, and he never stops telling me all of the incredible things that Morgan does in his life. My daughter as well, when she was studying in Paris, she studied at Sciences Po, and on New Year's Eve, and this is something, it took her 2 years before she told me, because she was so surprised by this, and she also didn't know if I would believe her. But and she's very, very down to earth. And she had gone to a New Year's Eve party with her cousin, and it was across town. And unfortunately, she had a little tiny cocktail dress on. She had a big coat, and she also had a purse. But she had taken some migraine medicine right before she left. And on the way there, she started feeling a little woozy. She had one glass of champagne, and then she told her cousin, Anne-Sophie, that she had to go home. And Anne-Sophie was there with her boyfriend. So she said, okay, go ahead, go on home. And Alix was feeling so poorly that she forgot to get her coat. She forgot to get her purse at the coat check. She rushed out into the street. She jumped into the first taxi that she saw. She looked over as she's riding along at the person next to her and realized that she had no idea of who was the other passenger. So she jumped out at the next stop sign and looked up at the street name and realized she had no idea where she was. And it started snowing. And she was in a tiny cocktail dress. It was a sleeveless cocktail dress. And the next memory that she has is of her roommates in, she lived in Saint-Germain-des-Prés, Rue Jacob. She was in the apartment that is 7 floors up. They were shaking her awake, and they were saying, Alix, we've got to go. We're going to Portugal today. We're going to miss the train. And she was in her bed, and she remembered that Morgan had picked her up and carried her home. And in fact, one of her roommates heard the door kick in at about 3 a.m, and she knows that it was Morgan who got her home safely.
Wow. So hang on. So Morgan in spirit did this?
Yes, in spirit, yes.
Got her home. Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
it's pretty amazing. But
Yeah.
there's no other explanation. There's just, and he used to do that all the time for everyone in China. When he lived in China, he was studying in France as well. He would carry people home all the time because 6'6", 280 pounds, he could carry anyone. And if they had had too much to drink, he would carry them home all the way up the flights of stairs for them. So he was just taking care of his sister as well.
So what has Morgan said to you, either directly to you or through a medium, about his agreement with you in this lifetime, and who he is, as you know, his agreement to in spirit and all that sort of stuff? Like, what's he said to you from the other side?
Well, I completely believe in a soul plan, and I think that it took me about 2 years before I really wanted to believe in a soul plan, because I didn't want to think that Morgan and I had pre-planned this, or that Chelsea and I had pre-planned this, but it all makes so much sense now. And in fact, when Morgan was packing to go to China, and his whole life, I must say, I was a helicopter mom. I was always worried about Morgan. I was never worried about the girls, but I always was worried something was going to happen to Morgan. I didn't think that I'd have him long. And then when he was going to China, we were packing his bag in his room. And as we were doing so, Morgan turned to me and he said, Mom, I don't think I'm coming home from China this time. And I said, Morgan, that's ridiculous. You can definitely stay here and cheerlead. You don't have to go over to China. You don't even need any more credits. And he said, no, Mom, I'll be fine. And I know that he is fine. I know that he knew that he was going to be fine in spite of the fact that he was going to be transitioning. And in fact, another thing that he's told me about this through a medium about 2 days after he transitioned is that if it hadn't happened at the base camp of Mount Everest in Tibet, it would have happened on the I-10 coming from the University of Arizona up to Cave Creek, which is a fairly dangerous road. And so it's simply an exit point, just like all of our kids have multiple exit points, but this was the one that Morgan chose to exit with.
So he was always going to go out with a bang. He wasn't going to sort of go quietly, either at the base camp of Mount Everest or in a car accident. Like, I'm going to go out with a bang. Yeah. I'm going to make my death something to talk about. Yeah. I suppose that any child that transitioned, that death is something to talk about, because we just don't expect kids to sort of lead such short lives. You know, we expect people to live into adulthood and live a life. And so when they transition, when they're young or in their teens or even in their 20s, it always seems like such a tragedy to us, the ones left behind, right?
Kind of look at it in a different way. We like to think that they had gotten every single amount of learning that they needed to get done completed, and that they were able to graduate early and go home early.
Yeah.
So they are happy, healthy, and home, and we're still here in school, and we've got a lot to learn. And so I think that all of these kids are best friends. They help each other to be able to communicate with us, but they also are in a beautiful place that is just so much easier than this Earth school. In fact, I've heard that Earth school is the hardest school in the universe. So here we are slogging along, you know, trying to live up to our children, because I think that that's one of the things that a shining light parent does. And we call ourselves shining light parents instead of bereaved parents, because it's so much more beautiful. And because we believe that the light of our children shines through us. And this, thank you. This is a book that was written about us, Shining Light Parents, Shining Light Parents Speak, and 130 of the volunteers of Helping Parents Heal were interviewed to be able to talk about the ways that they moved forward and healed. But I think that it's important for us as Shining Light Parents to do as much as we can to honor our kids and to remember all of the wonderful things that they've done. And I think that when a child transitions earlier than what we would like, they become someone who people sit back and listen to. So they listen to the cause of that child. And I believe that, you know, if you have a beautiful life and you live until you're 98 years old, you transition and that's it. And then you have maybe a beautiful family that comes along after. But when a child transitions, and it is not the proper order, it's not the way that we believe is supposed to happen, um, pushed to allow allow their memories to live on as much as possible by creating foundations, by doing things in their name. And I think that that's what we do with Helping Parents Heal. We just try to honor the kids as much as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I talk about tragedy, but when you talk to people who have left the matrix, exited the matrix, I call it, left this earthly world, they are not upset about it at all. Whether they die in utero or die at 99 or anywhere in between, they are not upset about it at all. It's us, the ones left behind, who get all upset about it. So I love what you're doing by educating people about the afterlife and about who we are as multidimensional beings, that we are not just here in one dimension. You know, I've had many people on the show who are proficient astral travelers or proficient at remembering their journeys, because I think that at night we are all together. All of us are all together at night in another dimension. As our body sleeps, our consciousness moves into another dimension, and we hang out with the people we call dead and the people who are alive, because they're asleep too. So they're in other dimensions. So we're all together, but we're not proficient in remembering that. So I've had many people on the show that are proficient in remembering that. And they say that, you know, Preston Dennett is one of them that I can think of, who is with his whole family when he's asleep. Some of them are in body and some of them are out of body. And he's had conversations with his brothers and sisters. And he goes, you know, you're not in your body at the moment. And they go, of course I know that. And he said, will you remember in the morning that we've been together here? And they go, no, I can't do that. I can't remember. So I think that expanding and awakening consciousness is giving us the ability to remember that we are never apart from each other. And that just alleviates the grief, because the grief is all about the loss, right? We feel like we've lost someone, but they're never lost to us, right?
They're never lost. And I love that you say that, because I talk about this all the time, that I spend time with Morgan and Chelsea when I'm sleeping. And
Yeah.
I believe that, you know, people worry about the fact that their children might reincarnate into a nephew or a niece or something like that. But that's just a very small part of that whole soul. And that whole
Right.
soul is existing where my soul is existing, your soul is existing there as well. Our kids' souls are there. So we're actually there with our kids. And I have heard from many different mediums that it's going to be as though not 1 second has passed when we get to see them again. And I truly believe that, because they don't miss out on anything. I think that a lot of times parents, um, are not as capable in the very beginning of feeling those hugs that the children are sending, or they might not be hearing the messages that the children are sending as well. And I also think that this is frequently because of the fact that they're in a very deep state of grief. And that's completely fine, because people can grieve as long as they want to, or we say heal as long as they want to. Um, and it doesn't affect our kids on the other side. They're in such bliss that nothing affects them. And they also see the bigger picture. They see that at some point their parents are going to get it and say, ah, I've just realized you're right here. You're right here
Right.
beside me, and I'm going to have a dream visit with you tonight. So,
Yeah.
um, but it is a wonderful thing when you realize that none of us is separate from the rest of the people here in the world. We're all together. We're all part of
We're
this
all one.
one unified soul that actually I feel um so much love and so much compassion for everyone that I meet. And I'm especially grateful. And I think that the reason is because the people that I meet, especially through Helping Parents Heal, are people who have been sent to me
Hmm.
through our kids. And I know that they're already friends, and they're
Yeah.
sending us their parents so that we can be friends as well.
Yeah, I think that what your organization is doing is educating people, is it awakening and expanding consciousness, like this show is doing, because people think that they're coming for healing, and the healing is really in the education, the awareness, the understanding that we are never separate. Like, I think we come to this earth school, as you call it, to experience the illusion of separation. The illusion, because separation is an illusion that we don't experience when we're dead, because we have that complete understanding of everything is unified. And so we come into the earth school to experience the illusion of separation, and none more than when someone dies, that illusion that we have lost or we are now separate to that which we love. And it's all an illusion, because we're always with them all the time. Every night we are with them. You know,
It's
I've had some... Mhm.
Go ahead. I was just going to say it's almost as though there's just a sheet of wax paper that separates us from our kids. And I don't think people realize they're not up in the ether sphere. They're not they're right here with us. They're experiencing everything that we do. And in fact, when we do have mediums who come on to Helping Parents Heal and who talk to parents, frequently they'll say, "Oh, you were in your bedroom a few minutes ago and you were looking at that picture of me right beside the bed," or they'll go into like the types of food that they were just eating right beforehand, because they're experiencing this with us as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so I've got so many things going through my head. Have you experienced that direct communication with Morgan and Chelsea, like as a psychic does, as a medium does, or do you still need to communicate through mediums? I suspect you do
I
experience that.
I do have thoughts that come into my head, and I have lots of signs. If I'm confused about different things, I'll ask for a sign from Morgan, and I always get the sign if I need it. But I believe that I'm not supposed to be communicating directly with Morgan and Chelsea the way that a psychic would, because, or a medium would, because I would never be able to turn it off. There are um, 30,000 kids in this organization, and I would probably be very busy talking to all of these kids day in and day out, which may be a bad thing, but I can't wait to hug every single one of these kids when I see them.
Well,
But
that's...
for
Mhm.
now, I think I need to focus on what I'm supposed to be doing here.
That's so interesting that you say that. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to turn it off. Well, that's again the illusion of people that think that if you're a medium, that you're open all the time, and you're just not. When I am out in the street with people, I have to close that off. Like, you just have to. You have to close it off and just be a normal person. But when I'm talking to someone like you on a show or talking to a client, I'm wide open and I've got that access. So you can turn it off and on at will. You don't have to have it open all the time. Like, people think that if you're psychic in any way that you've got, the meaning to the universe with you all the time. But we come to have this human experience, and yeah, and we can have that human experience of that forgetfulness of not having that access. I had an experience of our multi-dimensional aspects when my mother died and my best friend committed suicide. And Mum had been dead for about 20 years. And she came to me when I was in the shower to tell me something. I was too busy, so I shooed her away. But she had already incarnated and was now a child in a family member. She was a child, but yet she came to me as clear. I've never had a clearer experience in my life with any spirit than I did in that moment. At the time that my best friend committed suicide, she came. I didn't listen to her because I was too busy. I can't talk. I've got to go make dinner and I've got the school play tonight and I'm too busy. I'll call you back, I said to her. But it's interesting that she appeared to me as I remembered her as Mum, but she was already like a 6-year-old child at the time. So that like she had already incarnated, was what I'm saying. So we can still have access to the identity that we've known as our son or mother or loved one in spirit, even when they've come back as a new identity. It's so interesting, isn't it?
Well, yes, because they can exist in many different places at the
Right.
same time. So I think that that makes complete sense. And I also just wanted to go back to what you were saying. I understand that you can turn it on and turn it off, and my daughter's able to do that, and she learned how to. But we have an incredible medium who's also a Shining Light mom who never turns it off. And she has kids with her in the car as she's driving, and she has
Right.
kids with her who are showing up in her bedroom all the time, and she loves it. And I would probably be that person who would never turn it off because
Yeah,
I would be afraid that I'd be missing something. So
that's so
anyway, I
funny.
know that to be healthy, but she does about 7 readings a day too. And she's constantly helping parents as well. So I know that it is possible, and it's also advisable to turn this wonderful gift off, but it also is something that I don't think I would be able to do.
It's interesting. It's like you don't turn it off, you just turn it down. Yeah, you just control it. But I had a chat with, because I had Jamie Butler, who's an amazing medium. Have you heard of Elisa Medhus and the Channeling Eric phenomena?
Yes.
So she's a parent, and she reached out to Jamie, and she was brought up by militant atheists, she said. So she said she wasn't an atheist herself, but she was definitely agnostic. She was a busy mum of 5, a doctor, and her son died when he was about the same age as your son, about 20. And she reached out to a few mediums. She said, we're good, but she hit on Jamie. And Jamie is that sort of medium that can see them with her outside eyes, she calls them. You know, she can see spirit walking around with her outside eyes. And I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I wish I could do that, because I can't do that. And my guide said to me, Karen, you do not want to do that. And I said, why not? They said, could you imagine how confusing life would be? It's as if life is not confusing enough that you can't tell the difference between a physical person and a spirit person. And I said, yeah, you'd see a lot, right? You'd see a lot of spirit people walking around. It would be very confusing. So I thought to myself, yeah, sometimes you want things that you really don't want. And having it turned on all the time is something that I really don't want. So it's interesting that your medium friend does want to have it on all the time. Really interesting.
Well, it's interesting because she sees people from the other side, and 3D completely, but
She does.
she doesn't see people here. She sees auras, so she can't even really see your own face and get
Wow.
putting makeup on and everything because she's of this earth. It's fascinating. I have met some of the most interesting people on this journey,
I
obviously, and
bet.
um, it's always fascinating to see how this the different gifts that they acquire along the way are are remarkably different from other gifts that other people have, but they all end up giving them incredible information about our children on the other side.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that. I want to ask you about the people that you've met, but I need to do a station ID break. You're listening to Karen Swain, accentuating the positive, awakening and expanding consciousness on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM, syndicated radio streaming into 120 countries. And we are also streaming on Rumble, Odyssey. We're not on Twitch today, Facebook and Roku. We're on Roku today. And of course, YouTube. And my guest today is Elizabeth Boisson, which is a French name. She said, pronounce it like croissant, but Boisson. I'm probably butchering your last name, but anyway, I'm sure many people do. And the founder of Helping Parents Heal. So when people come to you and they are in grief, and you're offering up this smorgasbord of wealth of information, of education about who we are as spirit having a physical experience, can people swallow it all in one gulp, or do they need to come of it one step at a time? Like how does that work, Elizabeth?
Well, first of all, we're completely non-dogmatic, so nobody has to believe the way that we do. They don't have
Yeah.
to be spiritual to be a part of Helping Parents Heal. And if they want to just take baby steps and join our support groups, because we have support groups for all different types of um, ways that children transition. So we have support groups for suicide. We have support groups for children who of substance use. We also have support groups for children who have passed by cancer or an illness. But we also have support groups that are local, so that people can go to their own local support groups as well. But the most important thing is that we also have a lot of specialists to teach our parents how to communicate with their children in spirit. So one of the classes that has been going on from the very beginning is connecting with our loved ones in spirit. So it's helping parents heal, and this is one of the affiliate groups. So they learn to connect with their loved ones in spirit through automatic writing. And Mary Burton, who does the courses, has also written a very good book called the 21 day let's see, something across the veil. I don't have it right here with me, I'm sorry, but she teaches parents how to connect with their children through automatic writing, and then she also teaches them to get responses from them, which is wonderful. We have guided meditations, so we have a group that does guided meditations to connect with our children in spirit. We also have meditation that is done in a group but not guided. We have sound healing. So this is something that goes on at least once a week with Andrea Curry, who's in Montreal. And she teaches us how to become sound healers, but she also teaches how to heal through sound, which is really wonderful. And then we also have a lot of other modalities, such as I teach yoga for healing, and that's something that I do once a week. I also just do it in real life. I teach every day of the week, and I love doing it, but I do it once a week for helping parents heal. And then we have other classes, hikes, different things. We have Art for the Heart. I just went to a meeting today down the street from me, helping parents heal, Art for the Heart. And art is very healing, and it's something that has healed a lot of our members. And so we have classes to teach different ways to heal through art. And then we also have, so there are a lot of different ways that are available through Helping Parents Heal to be able to connect with our children in spirit. We also have a lot of information about how to get a dream visit from our loved one in spirit, which is very important.
It's an amazing organization. Have you got any affiliates down under in Australia?
Of course we do, yes. So we have a group in Sydney that just met yesterday in person. We have Melbourne. We have, let's see, Adelaide. And we also have a group that covers Australia and New Zealand. That's an online group. So we have the in-person areas, and then we have the online groups. And it's something that I think people in Australia are excited about. It's a wonderful thing to be able to. So we have affiliate groups in Australia. We have them in India as well. In the United Arab Emirates, we have them in Sweden and Norway, as well as South Africa, as well as the UK, as well as the United States and Canada and Mexico and Brazil. And Hong Kong was the latest that we just added a group in as well.
Wow. So if people want to find a group, they just go to helpingparentsheal.org and they'd be able to find a group there?
They can find a group there, yeah, definitely. And if they would like to join the meetings, they need to belong to Facebook and join our Helping Parents Heal group, where we have all of the links to be able to join the groups wherever they are in the world.
Yeah. I've got all Elizabeth links on the link in the description under this show. if you go to my website, I've got all her links there. There's Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and of course the website. They're all there. You've got quite a few links with the organization. So what are some of the stories that you've heard from parents, with their loved ones in spirit? I bet you've heard many. What's some of your
yeah.
favorite?
And in fact, I could tell you a lot, but one of the stories that's a lot of fun, and I just want to quickly bring this book out. In this book, it talks about Laurie Savoy, whose son Garrett had passed, and he passed by suicide, and they were having a celebration of life for him. And there was this red balloon that they had gotten for the celebration of life that was inside the house. And the red balloon kept circling them kind of strangely. It would just kind of bounce off of each one of them as they were at the island in the middle of the room. And one of the cousins that was there said, maybe that's Garrett. And so one of the other cousins who was poo-pooing this said, no, that's not Garrett. And he went and sat down at a computer across the room, and he was typing on the computer, and the balloon went over and tapped him on the back, and then went up and popped up in front of his face. And so this kid was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And everybody in the whole room is laughing about this. And he said, okay, if you're Garrett, go down the hall and get me a beer from the fridge. This balloon starts going down the hall, and then they're all following it, and it attached itself to the refrigerator. It just stuck there like it was magnetic, which was just hysterical. So that's one of the stories in here. And we have so many other amazing things that happen when our kids are sending us signs. I would love to be able to maybe just tell you, I have a section in here that's called How to Heal from the Passing of a Child. And there are 10 points that I have put in here. And if you don't mind, I would love to be able to just go through them very quickly. Would you do we have time for that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I just
So,
we haven't had any comments today, but if there's anyone online that has any questions for myself or Elizabeth, please pop your questions in the comments. But yeah, go ahead, please do.
okay, thank you. So, first of all, know that your child is not gone. The veil that separates you from your child is as thin as a sheet of wax paper, which is what we were talking about. And when we see them again, we will feel as though not 1 second has passed. Number 2, take 1 breath at a time, then 1 minute at a time until you are ready to move forward. Everyone's journey is different. Don't compare your journey to anyone else's. You are unique, just as your child is unique. Number 3, know that your child is happy, healthy, and home. And we are still in school. And we have so much to accomplish before we hug our kids again. But for now, they walk beside us, holding our hands and leading us towards healing. Surround yourself, this is number 4, with friends who understand. Our kids in spirit are all friends with each other. It is they who have connected us here on earth. Expand your friend group to include those who love to hear about your child in spirit. We keep them alive in our hearts and spirits by continuing to tell their stories. And this is something that's kind of hard because our parents and our friends who knew us when our child was still here are not necessarily the same people who are going to want to hear about this when they've transitioned. Number 5, be kind both to yourself and others. Helping others helps us even more. Once you move forward on the path to healing, reach a hand back to help those who are not as far along. Express gratitude, number 6. We have so much to be grateful for on this journey. Watch for the signs and the gifts that your children send you, and be sure to always thank them. This is very important. This will automatically bring more gifts. Number 7, express forgiveness for yourself and for others. We cannot heal without letting go of the feelings of guilt and anger that hold us back. Number 8, live each day in honor of your child in spirit. They are so proud of us, and they share in every single thing that we do. Number 9, raise your vibration. Eat healthy plant-based foods, practice yoga and meditation, take long hikes outdoors, take off your shoes and connect your feet to the earth, use crystals and essential oils, use sound meditation and breathing exercises, and again, practice kindness wherever you go. And the last one is, the number 10 is, learn to communicate with your child in spirit through automatic writing, guided meditation, the pendulum, dream visits, mirror gazing, forest bathing, Reiki, and much more. We can do this, and our kids high five each other every time they see us smile.
Hallelujah. Yeah. Well, you put all the communicate with your kids. What about just talking to them telepathically in your head? I mean,
Well,
many people think that if they do have a conversation, that they're just making it up. But I think that that's all a part of the awakening and expanding of consciousness, learning to trust that
yes.
our thoughts are not necessarily all our own, and learning to discern what is a negative thought, what is a thought from ego, what is a thought from spirit, what is a thought from guides, what is a thought from your loved ones, like learning to discern the different frequency and vibrational feeling of it. And yeah, it's and death is such a great place to start with all of that. Like, as you said, some people never ever think about this stuff until they experience a death of a loved one. I put together a book like you, Elizabeth, called Awakened by Death, 12 Stories of People that had spiritual awakenings through the death experience, either the death of a loved one or their own death, like a near-death experience. Yeah, so death can be or is such an awakening, a spiritual awakening, and that's what you're doing with your organization. You're really helping people spiritually awakening to who we are as extensions of that beautiful, blissful source energy feeling that you had when you were hugged by Morgan at the when he transitioned. That we all come from that beautiful place, and that we are multidimensional.
Exactly. And I think that it's also important to realize that we have so much collateral beauty along the way. This journey is not sad. In fact, I, I think that a lot of people that I know, and this is very interesting, actually feel like they are almost more alive than they ever were when they
Wow.
have a child
Yeah.
transition,
Wow.
because they learn so much and they understand so much, and they realize their child is not gone. So there are just incredible gifts that we have along the way, that are put there by our kids, that are put there by our guides, by people that are watching out for us, our angels. So
Yeah.
it's not a
Elizabeth,
sad.
it's not a sad journey. No, it's not. I mean, it started, death was my journey. Mum dies when I'm 16. So I'm asking questions. Where did you go? Can I still speak to you? If you're in some place, it must be a place that we're in before we actually get here, and a million questions. And that was the beginning of my spiritual journey, even though I had a million questions before that, hounding my parents with questions. Elizabeth asked me, how I got into all this and radio and everything. And I said, thank you so much. This is before we went live. Thank you so much for asking. Most people never ask when I have them on the show. So I just want to thank you for asking. But yeah, we were talking about quite a few years ago, 20 or 25, 30 years ago. I can't remember. I was already working as a healer, but I had asked my guides, what is the thing that creates the most suffering on earth? And how can I address that? And they said to me, your idea of death creates the most suffering on earth. And if you can address that, you will be doing great healing. Oh, makes me cry when I think about it. But yeah, so that's what you're doing. Our idea of death, because it's an idea. And you say that the veil is as thin as a piece of wax paper. And they said to me when you said that, the veil is nothing more than a thought.
That's beautiful. Yes,
It's a
it is.
thought.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it is important for all of us to raise our vibrations to be able to be on the same frequency. I know that you're on the same frequency as these
Wouldn't
kids
say the
are.
same, I would say similar.
Similar.
There are times when I get upset, that is not the frequency they're on. But, that's the human experience, right? We're afforded this luxury of having, bliss and depression and everything in between. But to have a default setting that is more heightened so that you're more joyous, more connected, more at peace, more unified. And you have access to the other dimensions in that frequency, and you have a happier life, right?
You do, but you're very fortunate to live on that frequency more often than a lot of us. And I think that
Right.
we all aspire to be on that higher frequency so that we can easily communicate with our kids in spirit. But that's not necessarily the only way that we can communicate with them. Thank heaven.
Absolutely. Mhm.
There are other ways that they can send us signs and validations, um, and the frequency thing is certainly something that's foolproof, and it's a wonderful way to be able to do so. But I would say that especially when people are starting out in that deep grief in the very beginning, it's hard to get up to that high frequency.
Absolutely. I have someone in my book is a beautiful woman, and I'm sure you've heard about her, called Scarlett Lewis. And she has the Choose Love movement. And her little son, Jesse, was shot in the Sandy Hook mass shootings when he was 5 years old. So she's a parent. And she said something so profound when I had her on the show, and I asked her to put it in the book as well. I hope it's in there. That it was during that grief process when she realized that her greatest fear had been realized, and that was the senseless death of her innocent 5-year-old child, that she sort of dropped into this place of, if I've already experienced my greatest fear, there's nothing else to fear. And she sort of came into this space of what I don't think she called it, but I call it grace, this place of feeling at complete peace in the world. And in that space, she had this sort of in-life, when I say in-life, a review of her life without having to have an NDE. And she looked back on her life and she saw that almost every thought she'd ever had was based in some type of fear or worry or anxiety that she had never, ever realized until she dropped out of that space. That we're in this constant state of worry, striving, anxiety. What time is it? Am I late? Do I look good enough? Is it okay? Is that okay? Is it okay? Like constant anxiety. And she got to see that. And she said she spent about 8 months in this place of this grace. And then she had one thought that brought her back. And in that time, she created this movement called the Jessie Lewis Choose Love movement. And she put she implemented education into schools to have people choose love over fear and understand their emotions and all this sort of stuff. And she met the president at the time, Obama, and the Dalai Lama. Like, she did this amazing stuff in this 8-month period where she was experiencing this grace. And then she had one little thought, and that was her older son. I hope I'm not ignoring him while I'm doing all this work. And she said that one little thought have her drop back into that default setting of anxiety. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because I think it's up to us to really be deliberate in shifting that. I mean, we can have this help from spirit that takes us out of that worry and fear, but I think it's up to us to really be deliberate in knowing how to choose our thinking, choose our thoughts, choosing love over fear in everything we think.
I agree. I think that they're totally opposite emotions, as James Van Praagh was saying the other night when he was speaking to us, that love and fear are at the opposite ends of the spectrum. But I also believe that um, most of our parents would say that they no longer fear death because we know what's coming. I mean, that's definitely something that we share with her. But I also think that when you have other children, um, you can't just ignore the children and go on this spiritual journey and just kind of leave them behind. Um, a lot of times it's hard for siblings because they feel as though their sibling has been elevated to almost a superhuman quality because of the fact that they transitioned early and every memory of that child becomes uh, something that's even better than it ever was in real life,
Yeah.
probably. And so, um, I think that siblings too, when parents are not doing well, when they are deep in grief, it's very, very hard for them too because they also exist, and they need the love and compassion that their other sibling who transitioned was getting. So the reason that I say this is that if she felt like she was dropping back into reality, I think that it is hard because I have lived with one foot here and one foot on the other side ever since Morgan transitioned. I can't say that it's true for with Chelsea because it was a little bit different. But definitely since he transitioned, I feel like I'm over there, and especially at night, I'm over there, and then I'm here as well. But I also have to be cognizant that I have two other beautiful daughters and now a grandson, and I want to be present for them as well. So um, it is it is a little difficult because we are floating between two worlds. And I'm sure you feel that way too.
Yeah, we're living in multiple worlds, I think. Yeah, floating between two worlds. I think we're living in multiple worlds. I'm very aware of my multi. I actually am quite aware of my other lives here on Earth, especially my future lives. And I have awareness of lives I've had in the past. I don't dwell there, but I've had a lot of memories. But yeah, and I'm also aware of being in spirit and talking with spirit. Yeah, I'm aware of my multi-dimensionality, absolutely. But for the most part, I'm pretty focused here. I'm focused here, but yeah, I don't find it difficult. It's just a matter of just choosing focus. When you multitask, it's a matter of that mental agility, be able to focus here, focus there, focus here, focus. I'm doing it all the time in a conversation with people I'm having on the show and in sessions, because I'm listening to you and I'm listening to your story, but I'm also listening to the mob that's here and listening to what they have to say. So you're like multi-focused. And being on radio really helps you do that, actually, because I'm multitasking. I'm listening to you, I'm listening to spirit, I'm watching the things, I'm organizing the thing. Yeah, it's multi-focused. I think that's where we're going as humans, to be more multi-focused. Yeah, some people call it ADHD, attention deficit disorder. Mary Rodwell calls it always dialed into higher dimensions.
Well, I think that you're doing a very good job of it. And it's definitely something that is important these days. And I think that being able to know what's going on the other side, know what's going on here as well is very helpful. And
Yeah.
again, as I say, this is almost a gift to a lot of the parents just because of the fact that it has allowed all of us to be able to learn so much more uh, about the afterlife, but about where we're going when we transition, where our kids are right now, which is really important, and about soul plans and about all of this other information that I don't think anybody would have even thought
Even
to
though,
get
exactly.
to
I wanted
beforehand.
to I want to talk about the conference that you've got coming up next year, because you put on, Elizabeth was telling me that she puts on a conference for parents every couple of years. So it's not every year. And you've got one coming up next year. So it's not just around the corner. But I also want to ask you, did Morgan ever tell you, either through a medium or directly, about his environment in that other dimension, like where he is, what he's doing, what it looks like?
Well, I think it's interesting because he traveled while he was here. He had been in so many different countries while he was here, and he's still traveling, and he's taking kids who are friends of my kids with him. And sometimes he'll be up at the top of the Eiffel Tower with a kid from up the street who transitioned as well. And they will hear it in with a medium that Morgan's taking him to see the Eiffel Tower. I think that they can basically do whatever they want to, and they don't have to climb up the stairs to get there either. And I think that being able to for Morgan, he is mostly just helping these kids when they transition to be able to acclimate and to learn how to communicate with their parents on the other side and make sure that they're happy and healthy. And I'm very proud of him for that. But I also think that going back to the conference that you were talking about, I'd really like to just mention Irene Vuvalides, who is the vice president of Helping Parents Heal, and she's also the conference director. So she and I organized the conference together, and it's just the two of us. So we have a very big job, but the one that will be coming up in 2026 will be amazing. We have Shining Light parents who come from all over the world, not just here in the States. They come from the UK, they come from Sweden, they come from Australia, they come from all different places. And as I say, last time um, Sir Eric Clapton was kind enough, and actually that's a picture of him, to allow us to use Tears in Heaven as the song that we um, introduced the conference with. And so he did an
Oh,
introductory
beautiful.
speech about that. 2 years before, we did it with Garth Brooks, who did the song The Dance, which is a song that's a beautiful country music song that a lot of parents identify with. And he did an introduction for that as well. We have films that are made about the conferences that you can actually see on the website to see what it's like when people come to the conferences. So this is just the homepage here. Oh, here's Garth Brooks when he did his um, opening video. And then after that, we played the dance with all of the kids in the video. But we have many, many pages of affiliate leaders who have, there are about 250 around the world now. This is Helping Fathers Heal, that book that just went by. So fathers heal differently than moms do. And so a group of dads who have healed got together and wrote this book, and we gave it out at the last conference about the differences between healing for dads. And it's a fascinating book. This one, Shining Light Parents Speak, that you had brought up earlier, is a book that there were 130 Shining Light parents who are all volunteers for Helping Parents Heal, either caring listeners or, yeah, that was Helping Fathers Heal. And so this was put together by Chris Ryan and 20 other dads. And then there's a foreword by Gordon Smith. And this one, 130 parents were interviewed to find out how they moved forward and healed. And it's fascinating because it goes into all of the signs and the reasons that they've been able to heal. And we offer all three of these books free of charge through Kindle every 3 months because we can do so. So if anyone's
Wow.
interested in being able to download these books, we'll be doing that, especially for Father's Day, for helping fathers heal, and other times. So just reach out and ask me if you'd like to, when the next free downloads will be.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's fantastic. And who are some of the people you were telling me before we went live, some of the people that come and speak at the conference? You've got some amazing speakers
Sure.
in this
Yes, I'd
in
love
this
to tell you
genre.
about the speakers. So we've had Dr. Mary Neal, Jeffrey Olson, Dr. Jeff O'Driscoll. All of these are near-death experiencers. Mark Anthony, who is a psychic explorer and a psychic attorney as well. And he studied at Oxford, and he's also he's an incredible psychic medium. And then we also have Dr. Gary Schwartz, who does studies at the University of Arizona. He's working on something called the soul phone. And so he comes to tell us about his research. He's Harvard educated. He's worked at Princeton as well. And now he's down at the University of Arizona. And then we have Dr. Christopher Kerr, who is the author of Death is But a Dream. And he, again, was writing about his palliative care patients and about their contact with their loved ones on the other side before they transitioned. And it's fascinating. And he actually did a film about this as well. And then also we have a lot of people who are from the grief community as well. So David Kessler has come to speak as well. And Paul Deniston does grief yoga when he comes. We had Anita Merjani last year with her husband, Danny, who came, and they did a beautiful job as well. And then we've had William Peters, who is the head of the Shared Crossing Project. So he talked about shared death experiences, and he's written a book about that as well. We have a lot of wonderful mediums who come as well as numerologists who help us with numerology and predictions, and are able to calculate our children's numbers as well. So Reverend Sue Frederick does that. But we have a lot of really wonderful and and Gordon Smith, I'm sorry. Gordon Smith is someone who's been with us from for many years now. And he also paints a beautiful oil color painting of an angel for each conference. And he is an evidential medium from Scotland, and he comes as well. We also have some very, very talented mediums who are from this area, such as Vera Gibson. Oh, we had James Van Prague last year as well, who is just such a hoot, and he's so much fun. And then Maureen Hancock as well, who's on the East Coast. She's closer to Boston, and she is also a hoot. It's really fun to be able to incorporate all of that laughter into the healing, because it allows us to heal a lot more quickly. And we had opening and closing ceremonies that were Native American ceremonies that were led by Jeffrey Olson and Jules Cantrell. And that was very beautiful as well. But we usually have about 44 speakers who are a part of our conference, as well as all of the parents who attend.
So is the format that it's just one speaking stage, or do you have several speaking stages?
We have keynote speakers. Oh, Suzanne Giesman is also one of our keynote speakers, Suzanne Wilson. So the keynote speakers are addressing all 1,200 parents. Then we have breakout sessions, and those are a little bit smaller. And we have it's more intimate and easier to be able to speak with the person who's presenting as well. We have different workshops to teach us how to do guided meditations, how to do breath work, and all of these other things as well. How to
And
use a pen.
how to use a pendulum. Do you have active readers there that are doing mediumship readers?
Yes,
Like,
and
are they
active
doing it on little stalls, or how are they doing it?
No, we have 2 sessions where we have something called a medium scramble, and so the
Medium.
mediums, the parents don't know who are the mediums are that are going into the rooms, and so we pick 2 by 2, and they just enter into the rooms that the parents are in, and then they go up and start doing these readings for the parents, and it's always very exciting because the parents don't know who they're going to get, and the mediums don't know either, and the mediums have a lot of fun doing this. And the mediums also give readings throughout the conference. So we have rooms for them to be able to be doing their own private. Oh, and we
Reading.
have healers too. I'm sorry. We also have healers who come to the conference and help with healing. And there's a healer in Australia named David Router who has come to do energy work with us at two different conferences as well, all the way from Australia.
Oh,
And
from
he,
Australia. I was going to ask if you have international speakers that come, or are they all American?
lots of international speakers. We have many who come from the UK. We
Yeah.
have, again, from Australia. We have one of our speakers is from Bogota, and she is a near-death experiencer. Ingrid Hankala, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of her, but she's a PhD, and she comes to speak as well. And then I'm just thinking about the other international
So
people.
if people are listening to this and they want to get involved in some way, do you have people that can volunteer and help you organize it?
Organize the conference.
Yeah.
Um, Well, that's a possibility, but the conference really runs by itself. What
Sounds
we
like
really do need, though, is if people are interested in becoming affiliate leaders or maybe caring listeners, we would love to be able to talk to them about that. In whatever part of the world that they are in, um, we're always interested in starting an affiliate group, and we have a training program to be able to help with getting people started, and we support them the whole way along. We have 3 affiliate directors that help with that, and so if
Oh,
anyone's
beautiful.
getting involved, we'd love to
Getting
have them.
involved. Yeah. So the website is helpingparentsheal.org. And my guest today has been Elizabeth Boisson, and she is the founder of Helping Parents Heal across the world. And thank you so much. You've been listening to Accentuate the Positive Awakening Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3. We have run out of time. We've got 2 minutes left. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's such a great organization. What is Charlotte saying here? She'd like to do that training. Yeah, Charlotte, go check out the website, and great show. Thanks, Sherry. Sherry's in Canada. Have you got many people in Canada involved?
Yes, we have a lot of affiliate groups in Canada, so hopefully she'll be able to either find one or start one herself.
Yeah, there you go. There's never a dull moment on this earth. Sorry, go on. Thank you.
No, I was just going to say this has been wonderful. I appreciate it, Karen. And I also am excited about being able to talk to you in the future because I love your show and I'll be watching the other shows that you have on. Oh, from Newfoundland. Well, it would be nice to have a group there. So if you'd like to start one, we'd love to have you.
There you go, Charlotte. That'll give you something to do if you're bored. Start a group. I'm always telling my tribe, they're like, I have no one to talk to about this stuff. I said, start a group, start a group, start a group. Thank you again. We've run out of time. It's been such a blessing and an honor to speak with you today, Elizabeth. You're just doing amazing work. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody that's been listening and watching And remember, if you want to see more of Elizabeth's links, press the link underneath this show on all the platforms, and it'll take you to my website where all the links are, and you can see all the links, all the Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of it is going on there. And I will catch you next time. Next show is Garnet Schulhauser. He has been on my show at least 8 times over the last decade. And I reached out to him again. He's incredible. He travels the cosmos in his astral form with his spirit guide, and he's a QHHT, a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner as well. He's a wealth of information. An hour and a half is never enough to talk to Garnet. But he said that he stopped doing podcast shows because he got a little bored with it after 10 years of doing them. But he's going to do my show. So stay tuned for that one next week. And I'll catch you all next time. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.